Gwen Holden, 8150 West Point Drive. I hope y'all can come up with some money to pave our roads, 'cause it sure does need it. I've never seen such holy roads. And I've lived here all my life. They're in bad shape. It's time y'all done something about them.
Do we have anyone else wish to speak?
Linda Noe, Joe Stevens Road. I think I know where the answer is for the money. It's in the school budget and rearranging the tax money that goes to the schools, because they're going to get the massive increase, 13 million or more from the state. So you will not need to increase anything. In fact, you'll be able to move pennies. It won't move money away from them. It will just take pennies away that they would get this year, and suddenly they're going to appear in the general fund or the highway capital projects or some of the other funds that are not so well funded or in good shape that you'll find about shortly. Thank you.
Thank you for your comments. Does anyone else wish to speak? Okay, thank you very much. We have no old business coming up. In new business, I'll ask Mayor Bill Britton to come to the podium and address the General Debt Service Fund 101. That'll be tab 56 in your folder.
If you should have at your seat a copy of the debt report, you'll pull that out, and we'll go over that just real briefly, and then it's something that we have to prepare every year and present to the commission. Last year and this year, we're doing it during the budget process. Excuse me. And then we'll get into the budget for fiscal year 24 for debt service. Art, the report that is before you is the annual debt report for this fiscal year, for fiscal year ending 6/30/23. Let's see now. You do have the multi-page report, not just the. Okay, you do have it. Or do you have the? You have the PowerPoint. You don't have the full report. You do have the. Okay, look at the full report. Look at page 3. Page 3 of the full report shows you our debt, shows the amount of the issue, the rates, the various debt, and the maturity date. If you'll look under other loans payable, which is that first group of debt, you'll see that the Series E4A refunding bond, that's the last piece of variable rate financing that dates back to 2020, or 2000, 2001, back in that time period. That will mature in June of 25. And then the piece underneath that, the qualified school construction bonds, which funded the addition to East High School back around 2000, I believe. Well, let's see, it was issued in 09. And that's right, it's a 15 years. And it financed the expansion of East High School, and it'll be paid off in July of 26. So those are two pieces of debt that will be paid off pretty soon. Then under bonds payable, you'll see that first issue, the Series 2014. That's the next group of debt pieces. The 5.2 million is how much was issued, and it was issued partly for roads and partly for schools, and it'll be paid off this year. So because of paying off these pieces of debt, we were able to structure our debt for the Justice Center and the new elementary school and West High School's expansion with adding just very very little revenue. I'm thinking all around 6 cents to the debt service fund. So that just kind of, as you look through this, look at this page will give you a broad picture of what the debt service looks like. Let me show you, let's see, this slide here, and it is page 27 in your report. It shows you the big picture of what our debt looks like as compared to the revenue that we have coming into debt service. If you see the purple bar across the top, that's the revenue that is currently going into the debt service fund. And then you'll see that the next 3 years we will be spending fund balance, which was part of the plan, and we won't be spending as much as the original plan was because of the increased revenue, both in property taxes and in interest income. And then the revenue starts exceeding the expenditures, and we'll be building fund balance, and therefore also have more capacity if we need to issue debt for another project of some kind. We'll have some capacity, and you can see the timeline on that. That's page 27 of the report. On the slide presentation, our total debt as of the end of this fiscal year is $129 million, and that's all the debt has been issued for the West High School expansion, the new Lincoln Elementary, and the Justice Center. So all that has been issued. This also includes the debt for the landfill that was issued this calendar year. And then as far as our bond rating still remains strong. And as in Moody's, we're a AA3, and Standard & Poor's, we're a AA minus. So for a community our size, our debt is still, our financial position is still strong, and that's reflected in the financial markets as well. Any questions on the debt report? If you, when you read through the full report, feel free to call me or Amanda, and we can answer any questions that you may have.
Are these online for the public?
Pardon?
Are these online for the public to be able to?
Not right now, I don't think.
When will they go online?
This week. We'll put it on this week. Okay, if you'll turn to your budget books then. And for those of you who this is your first budget, let me give you a little tutorial on how to use the budget binder. Is the various budgets and departments, like the departments within the general fund, are behind certain tabs, and you have a table of contents in the front that tells you which tab that department is in or that fund is in. And like for the debt service fund, if you look at the table of contents, debt service is tab 56. So if you'll turn to tab 56, we'll look at how we structure each of the different budgets within that tab. And you'll see in the notebook that we put revenues first. So as far as debt service, you'll see revenues first and then the expenditures. That's the same way that we do it for the general fund and highway and sanitation as well. On the first page, now this is draft one. What we will do is this is the first draft for our first swing through the budget. Then we'll go through all that, and then you'll make the changes you want to make, or there'll be new information to come available. Like, for example, we're still working on the governor's initiative for the SROs to put in the elementary schools and how we're going to handle that. That is not included in this budget. So we will be adding that in draft 2 as we continue to work with the Sheriff's Department and the school department to work that out. We had a meeting last week to start that conversation. So that will be one change that will be in draft 2, and there may be others based on decisions that you make, or maybe new estimates on the revenue side, or new. We still need an update from our insurance company on our what our premium is going to be on our liability insurance. We have an estimate that we put in here, but we should, by the end of this budget cycle, get the full amount for that. Okay, on revenues, well, let me back up. Any questions on how we've structured the book and where you can find material? Anything? Okay, first page, debt service, tab 56, is estimated revenues. This is county property taxes, or the next several revenue codes. And the first line is current property tax. So the current tax is what we get. It'll be the 2023 property taxes that will be mailed by the trustee in October. And so that's the 2023 taxes. And we're estimating and budgeting over $6.9 million in property tax, in current year property tax. That's 43 cents on the tax rate, and that's the current rate that we have for debt service. So 43 cents in the current, and we estimate that'll be an additional $50,500 based on growth from the increase in assessments. I'll just hit the high points here. You have the circuit clerk and master collection prior years. Those are taxes that are collected in the clerk and master's office, where the property owners, their taxes have been turned over to court and sued for the collection of their taxes, and we're estimating $94,000 there, which is a $34,000 increase. Interest and penalty, which goes along with that, as well as with the prior year delinquent tax collections, we anticipate a $23,000 increase there. You'll see down, look at the revenue code on the far left, where you see 40210. On the far left column, 40210, that's local option sales tax. And in prior years, past several years, we've budgeted about $63,000 in sales tax for debt service. And because of our interest income has grown so much, we are proposing that we move that $63,000 to the highway fund. And that doesn't take care of the revenue issue in highways, but that's one thing that we propose to offset that. So that's why there's a zero under the proposed budget line under local option sales tax. If you turn the page to page 2 of debt service, revenues continue. If you look about halfway down the page where it says investment income, it's on the revenue code, it's 44110. And that's our interest income. And this is interest earned by the trustee's office off the balance that's in the debt service fund. And we're estimating that this year we'll collect $1.1 million in interest, where we had budgeted just $260,000. But the interest rates have gone up this year, and that's benefited us in this area. And so we're estimating, since we'll have a full year of the higher rates, about $1.3 million in interest income. Yes.
Now, remind me, you told me that goes where? Does that go towards the jail?
No, there's two buckets. All right, here there's the money in the debt service that we pay our payments. Okay, that's this money. And then the other bucket is the money from the bond issue. That interest goes toward the jail. Right. This is for our payments. You'll also look at the next line, line down. It's 44990. And this is just for your reference because it'll come into play in a couple of years. Back in about 2000, when the school system, or when the county issued bonds for the new Westview Middle School, the new Eastridge Middle School, renovations to several of the elementary schools. The school board, the county asked the school board, and they agreed to contribute $500,000 every year toward debt service for those projects. And so that's where this money shows in the budget. If you look at 44990, it says other local revenues. That's where we post Board of Education payments to debt service. And so that will end when the E4A bond is paid off in 2025. So, and that's been figured in all the debt service planning we've been doing. And that'll be about the right timing for the Lincoln Elementary School and increased cost of operations, so they'll have an extra $500,000 to do something with there. So that's just for your information. So if you'll turn to the next page, then the expenses start, and you can match these numbers to what's in your debt report as far as what our expenses will be in various areas. You'll see on the first page of expenditures, the highways and streets. It's 82120, 601 principal on bonds. It's under proposed budget. It's zero. That's because we're paying it off. I think this week, so we make the payment. So that'll be paid off. That bond will be paid off. And then you turn the page and you'll see the other payments made under 8220603 highways and streets. That's interest on bonds, and that's a zero because that bond will be paid off. It'll no longer exist. So if you turn the page, in the last page of this budget for debt service, you look under the column for third from the right, proposed budget for 2023-24, you'll see total expenses of $10,276,564, which will we estimate be about $492,000 more than the revenue that we bring in. And if you look at that chart, that's in the debt report, that goes right along with it. And again, also, just a reminder that throughout this budget, we estimate low on income. And so I would not be surprised if we don't finish the year in the black, just based on that. So, but right now, this budget document calls for using $492,000 of fund balance for our debt service. And that's part of the debt service plan that we put together when we were issuing the bonds for the Justice Center. Any questions? Okay, very good. Mr. Chairman, you want me to go ahead and go to the general fund?
Yes, sir. Just keep
Since,
going.
Mr. Poole could not be here tonight. He was originally planned to present sanitation and highway, but he had a medical issue in the family, so we shifted gears and shifted direction. So we'll be working on the general fund tonight. If you will turn to tab, let's see, tab 4. That's the revenue, the general fund revenue tab 4. We probably won't get through the entire general fund tonight. In fact, I know we won't. That's not the plan. We'll get through a lot of it. We have some departments and some requests that we've scheduled for the 13th, or next Tuesday, the departments that have asked for more funding, and I wanted them to be here to answer questions. Okay, as far as revenue goes, the first section is your property tax, current property tax. Under the current property tax line 40110, if you look under proposed budget, that's the 23-24 budget, it's $12,798,000. And if you look at the far right column, that shows an increase of $2,221,933. And where that comes from is moving 12 cents from the school property tax rate to the general fund. So that would raise the general fund property tax rate to 79 cents. And next, well, on Thursday, when the schools make their presentation, we'll talk some more about that after they get done. And we've talked to the school system about this move, and they are in agreement with it. And what we've done is and what you'll see in their budget is we've maintained maintenance of effort. They've received about $13 million new dollars from the state under the new funding formula. And so the maintenance of effort will be the same as it was for the 23 fiscal year. And what we will make up the difference from the property tax that's being moved by budgeting more sales tax. And if you remember from the presentation last week, how the sales tax collection has exceeded budget each of the last several years, and so we will use more of that sales tax money that goes to schools in their budget. So it's 12 cents is what we're estimating that will move, or that's the plan right now. As you go down through here, just to hit some of the highlights of the revenue is just prior year tax, 40120 trustees collection prior year tax is up $40,000, and that's just because of moving tax rate. We did that for this year's budget, and so next year's delinquent tax collections will be the 22 taxes, and that will show up there on that line. Let's see, wheel tax 40240 is the wheel tax. We're anticipating about $50,000 increase in wheel tax because we've been budgeting that kind of low. This year we anticipate collecting almost $1.7 million for wheel tax. And Rodney, I gave you some bad information last week on what a dollar brings in. It brings in $62,000. Now, at one point, we've grown. At one point, it was around 50 to 55,000. So it's $62,000 per dollar on the wheel tax. Let's see. At the bottom of the page, 40270 business tax. Now that is the tax that businesses pay. They pay it to the state of Tennessee, and the state returns a portion of it to the counties, and it's based on the sales, the gross sales of the business. And we're anticipating $1.3 million in business tax, and that's about a $175,000 increase in the budget. So we're being more aggressive in budgeting those dollars. On the next page, sure. He carries it in his wallet.
Currently, right now, 22 is 96% collected. And 21 is 99.25. I'm expecting another, if you look at the bottom of that, August will pick up another 1% and then another 1%. So by the time the tax bills go out, you're about 98%.
Does an excellent job. Our people pay their taxes.
Mayor Britton,
Yes.
question. On the TIFs, 40115, is that the discount we give new businesses like Food City and so forth to get them in the door?
No, the TIFs are, it's a way that developers can use tax increment financing to help pay for the infrastructure for their development. We have, I think, five TIFs, I believe, at different stages based on their age. And let me make sure I can get this right, is with the way TIFs work is Piece of property that's developed, let's say, for example, Massengill Springs down here at Food City on West AJ Highway. That was a farm there, or farmland there. It was developed, and so it had a base tax rate. There was a base amount of tax that was paid on that property when it was developed. And then what happens is the additional taxes collected are paid to the bank, to the financial institution that finance those improvements, whether it be roads, sewer, water. I think there was some storm drainage work on that one. So that money goes to the bank to help pay off that loan. And then we collect that base tax rate plus the growth that would go to debt service, which is around 21% of the growth. And so that happens. Right now, I think the industrial board only approves 10-year TIFs, I believe. This one might have been a 20-year. I'm not sure. But that's how it works. And the 500, I think it's 550,000 is an estimate of what we would receive, and you'll see in the expense side it's the same amount. It's a wash. And so if you look at the previous few years, you can see what we received and what we paid out. And like this year, it's 486,000. The year before that, 499. So it just varies. Yeah, the 10 years or the 20 years, yeah. It's for infrastructure. No. Correct, yes.
Is the 10-year standard out of curiosity?
It is now. When we started them, I think they started at 20 years, but they've gone to 10 years now. Okay, on page 2, you can see you have marriage license, cable TV franchise. We collect about $350,000 in that. We anticipate we've had good collections in building permits because of the building boom the past couple of years. We've budgeted low on that. We've increased that some, but still lower than what we've collected the past couple of years. The next page starts in fines and fees that are collected by the court system, and no real significant changes in any of those. But collected by the circuit court clerk's office collects a lot. Sessions court collects even more because of the number of cases. Juvenile court collects a little. Chancery court collects more. So you can look at all those. Nothing real significant there. On the next page, you've got under charges for current services, you have a couple of fees that are charged to inmates. You have patient charges, which is the copay that inmates pay through their commissary to see the inmate medical clinic. And so for certain items, they pay a copay. And then in 43-170, work release charges, and that's some inmates, not very many, are released daily to go to work and then return, and they have to pay a work release fee for that. The next area under fees, you'll see 43-340, which is recreational fees. That's our campground fees, and we're estimating $170,000 in the budget, which is up $30,000. When we increased fees about a year and a half ago, that increased our revenue flow there. Let's see, telephone commissions at the jail have decreased some. If you'll look at 43-383, that's the additional fees for titling and registration. That's a new fee that the county clerk, the county clerk collects. And we anticipate this year collecting about $71,000. That's where Peggy asked you to purchase the kiosk from were these dollars. So these dollars can be used for that kind of thing, for operations for the clerk's office. But they have to be spent on the clerk's office. Let's see. The rest of them are small, just small amounts in different fees that are collected by various offices. On the next page, under other local revenue, you'll see 44110 investment income. One thing we did back around 2000 when we started using variable rate debt, we changed where we put the interest income. And what we did is we moved all the interest income to debt service, because as the variable rate went up and down, our interest income would go up and down with it. And so we moved all the interest income to debt service. And so all the interest income from general purpose schools, from debt service, from general fund, from sanitation, all that interest goes to the debt service fund. So there's no interest there on that line, and that's why. In 44120 under lease rentals, that primarily what goes in there are the lease rentals at the park, for the pavilions and the sheds. There is an increase this year for our rental payments we'll receive from the shopping center, from Oak Tree Plaza. So that's where the increase of $40,000 is there on the income side. Let's see. Down in the second half of the page, we'll look at the fees that the clerk's office, the different constitutional offices pay to the general fund. Each office collects a fee. When I say, let's say fee offices, we're talking about the offices that collect money, like the county clerk's office, the trustee's office, the circuit court clerk's office, the sheriff's office, the clerk and master. They all have fees that they collect. And so what happens is all their fees are turned over to the general fund and are used to pay for the operation of their offices. And in the trustee's case, and in most all these offices, they collect more fees than needed to pay for the operation of their office. So it's used for other county operations. And so we've budgeted low in some of those offices. And so we've increased, like county clerk's office by $100,000, circuit court clerk by 10, clerk and master by 25, and the trustee's office by $150,000. But those are fees collected by those offices and paid to the general fund to offset the operation of their offices. The next page is, a lot of this is state revenue. 46-110 is juvenile services program. We get $9,000 for the state there. The solid waste grant is our tire grant. It's $95,000, and that goes directly to the landfill to help pay for the disposal of tires. Law enforcement training programs, each post-certified officer receives a certain amount of money every year to be recertified. Litter program is your litter grant that we get from the state. It has, we pay for the operation of the litter crew that uses inmates. We have 2 litter crews. The one that uses inmates, we use this grant to pay for the corrections officers and supplies. And also there's an education component to the litter program. State income tax under the 46820, the state legislature did away with it. We did not collect any this year. It has gone away. It no longer exists. We have an increase in our state revenue sharing dollars. We're increasing that by $132,000. That comes from TVA, and they've increased it over the past few years. let's see, under state prisoner boarding, that is 46915. That's what the state pays us to house state prisoners. And right now it's $41 a day per prisoner, and we average around 45 state prisoners a day. And so if you calculate, the 600,000 is a little under $41 times 45 people a day. That's where we got that number. That has, when we were housing 400 plus inmates, we had as many as 70 to 80 state inmates, and we generated about $900,000. So we're estimating about 600,000. Under other state grants, 46980, we're budgeting $320,800, and at the bottom of your sheet you'll see the what's included in that, and that's a TCI grant, which is a grant, training grant for the corrections officers of $15,000. The drug court grant, which is $100,800, and then the new mental health court grant of $150,000 is in there, and then you have the mental health transport grant of $55,000. That's what's in that line. And then the last line of that page, 46990, other state revenues, that includes a fee that the state medical examiner pays us to send them our reports, our death reports, and then the state will reimburse us for the presidential primary by, I think it's $40,000. So we'll be reimbursed for part of our costs for holding the presidential primary in March of next year. Turn the page, and you'll see under federal through state the 47220 civil defense reimbursement. That's our emergency management, where we're paid from the state a grant for emergency management of $29,200. It's been that for several years. We also get some Homeland Security grants. The one for next year is around $24,000. The next group under contracted services, 48140. 48140. That's what we receive from the city of Morristown for various partnerships. And in this, this particular year, we have the city of Morristown reimburses us for part of the cost of the reappraisal that we do every year. So many parcels every year, the assessor's office updates their assessments, and so we're paid a portion of the city for the assessment of city parcels. The next is the personal property audit reimbursement. Now, personal property is on your equipment and your business, and every year we have a company that comes in and works for the assessor and audits some of the reports that mostly large industries have submitted, and so the city reimburses us for some of that. The city also reimburses us for some of our EMA costs and also for animal control as well under our agreement with them. And in the animal control line, there is an increase of $30,000 for additional payments to the animal shelter for housing of animals. And I'll explain that more on the expense side. Then lastly, under 49800, transfers in. That's a line that's not used very often, but what we'll be doing is we'll be moving money from the opioid settlement fund, which is Fund 128, and move $150,000 of that money into the general fund to pay for part of the jail to work program and pay for treatment services for drug court. So those will be out of the opioid settlement monies. Right now, we have about $1,080,000 in that fund. That's not committed, so. So that's the revenue of the general fund. Any questions? Yes.
The 47, 235, what is that number, Joe?
It goes, what Director Bell does is he divides it every year among various public safety agencies. Like one year it may go, half of it go to Marshtown Police Department and Sheriff's Department. Another year it may go to the Marshtown Fire Department and the volunteer fire departments. It just depends how much money and what projects are requested. Yes.
How about, maybe you said it and I missed it, 43340, the recreation fee.
That's the campground.
Yeah.
Questions?
So, the opioid money, that 1,080,000 uncommitted, is
Correct.
sitting there.
It's in the bank, and it's in another bucket. It's in a bucket reserved for those purposes. There's some of the money is unrestricted, but most of it is restricted for treatment type related expenses and projects. Any other questions? Okay, if you turn to tab 5, we'll start the expenses, if that's okay with you, Mr. Chairman.
It is.
So we'll just jump into the expenses for the general fund. The first budget we'll look at is county commission. Under tab 5, and let's see, there's an increase of $3,076, and most of that is for an increase for our audit services. The state sets it's based on the population of the county is what we pay, and so it's gone up for next year by $2,900. Medical insurance for commissioners is up $1,300. Maintenance agreements for the voting system that you use is up $1,700. And we had a decrease in state retirement, which offsets some of those increases. So that's $3,076 there for county commission. Any questions there? Tab 6 is the Board of Equalization. Let's see, it starts meeting June the 1st on Thursday. And that's the board that will hear any appeals of any assessments that the assessor of property has placed on properties. There's no increase there. Questions? Tab 7 is the county mayor's budget. You'll see an increase in the salary for the mayor, and that is set by the state. And the state legislature several years ago tied the salaries of all the elected officials to what state employees received the year before. And so that's about 4.87%.
Question.
Yes,
Now that is like the sheriff's office as well, correct?
correct. All the elected officials, yes. They also set the salary of the election administrator. Let's see. That's the biggest area of increase. The others just a few dollars here and there for a total increase of about $6,600. Tab 8 is your county attorney budget. And there's no
The question before you bring that up, it's not been too long ago since you came in and we had to add money to the county insurance plan. I'm thinking something like 350,000, and I may be incorrect. Will we see another increase for that as well?
Yes.
Can I ask what you are expecting? Didn't you have more eyes on these than most of us?
It's in. I'll make a whole presentation on the health insurance plan, and I'll show it to you. But at the very back, on the very last page, you'll see a lump sum amount that we're proposing that the general fund, the increases of premiums on the very last page. Of the expenses.
One more question. And I guess it's been 2 months ago when you had to have the influx of cash.
Yes.
Was the nicest way I know of putting it.
Yes.
Are we looking to have a second influx halfway through the year next year, like we've had this year?
No, that's not the plan. Now, I can't predict the future as far as how many sick folks we'll have and how many cancer cases we'll have or anything like that. So I can't, all I can do is go on history. Okay, on county attorney, no increase there. So tab 9 is your election commission. Now you'll see during your term, as your term progresses, how the election commission budget will go up and down, just based on the number of elections that you have in a year's time. And in the coming year, we have one election, and that is the March presidential primary. And so you'll see some reductions in budgets, like for election workers and contracts with private agencies, which is the company that operates the software for the elections. We'll have a reduction in legal notices. We don't have to put as many legal notices in the newspaper because we'll only have one election. So for this budget cycle, compared to the last one, the election commission budget will go down $49,000. Any questions there? Okay, tab 10, that's the Register of Deeds office. Jim Clausen's having some turnover in his office from retirements. And so you'll see an increase in deputies. That's part of, he's wanting to bring someone in to train for a while. We've got another office doing the same thing because of some pending retirements. So that increases the budget for both salary and medical insurance and the payroll taxes that go along with it. And then under data processing, where it has a $5,000 increase, that'll be paid for by his fees that he collects, his data processing fees. That show on the revenue side. Now, any of these budgets that we go over today, if you would like for the official to come and speak to you about it, we'll be glad to have them come. Next Tuesday is a day that I've got scheduled for departments to come and defend some of the requests that they've got. Yes.
In general, this increase, to add somebody on for training, will that maybe, how would that go away if they retire?
It will. And I'll show you one office that we're seeing that happen. Under tab 11 is planning. A transition in planning here is we are, right now, planning handles not only planning, but also the stormwater operations are out of the planning office, codes enforcement works out of the planning office, and building inspection works out of the planning office. And in this budget, there's a part-time position that is going away because it's moving to another budget. It's moving to the stormwater budget, and the request is to make it full-time because of I guess pretty much we've got to do it to meet the requirements of our stormwater permit. And TDEC has pretty much said that there's like 3 things that you need to be doing, and we've got to have a full-time person to take care of that. And so what this budget reflects is moving that part-time position out. And so that's the $14,779 that reduction that you see under 169. And then the payroll taxes are reduced, the medical insurance, and so forth. There's an increase for legal fees. We're anticipating probably more court cases with enforcement of the zoning regulations and building codes and property maintenance. We're expecting all that to create more activity in the court system. Let's see. Increased a little bit in maintenance of vehicle. We probably next year, not this budget we're working on, but the next one, we'll probably be requesting a new vehicle for the building inspector. So overall, this budget is down $11,800. Tab 12 is codes compliance or codes enforcement. And the increase there primarily is legal fees. And we're just budgeting an increase and anticipating more court activity. Okay, tab 13 is our GIS, or Geographical Information System. We have a mapper. We have one position. We created this position several years ago with 3 functions. One, it does all the mapping for the assessor's office. We're property splits and those kind of things. So this person handles that mapping, and then this person does all the addressing in the county. And then this person also does some GIS mapping for the various departments. She'll be doing a lot of work for stormwater and maybe sanitation in the enforcement of the bulk waste regulations, if we can get some technology in place there, and possibly helping with law enforcement as well, mapping crime data and that kind of thing. So that budget is up $323, and that's primarily the longevity payment for Anna. Anna Warren is our GIS technician, and her 3rd year anniversary is this year. Tab 14 is the maintenance department and the maintenance budget. And increase in the supervisor's line, 105 of $5,200. That was a raise given to Terry. It was approved by the previous commission, and it was done in July. So it was in place for the whole budget year, although it happened in July. And so compared budget to budget, there's an increase there. Here's another transition. We're having one of our maintenance technicians retire. And so what Terry wants to do is hire someone for 4 to 6 months to train underneath Ronnie. Ronnie Witt is who's going to be retiring, and train underneath Ronnie. And Ronnie does a lot of our HVAC work and electrical work. And so that would require some additional funds. And so we've got that plugged in under the maintenance personnel line and the medical insurance as well as the payroll taxes. Any questions there? Yes, ma'am.
Maybe it's 3 or 4 tabs back. How is it when you mentioned about maybe getting another vehicle? How is it you decided to get a vehicle and not say, well, here's $200 a month for you to get to and from? Versus, we're going to go out and buy a new vehicle.
Well, I think part of it is the maintenance history of the vehicle. And during, when we held our department reviews, they presented, I guess, what repairs had taken place in the vehicle, gave us any stories they had if they were stranded anywhere. But the mileage of the vehicle and that kind of thing. I think the on the planning on the building inspector's vehicle, I think it's an 08 Equinox, I think. And so we've had that a while. And what we want to do as well is like we have a vehicle planned for the community service program, which mostly is highway miles. Now, on the building inspector, it's mostly city miles and stops and starts, and especially for the assessor's office. The community service is mostly highway miles where they take people to and from treatment. And so our plan there is to move that vehicle to recovery court and let them use that vehicle. So we don't just, what's the word? We don't just discard them or sell them all the time. We repurpose them from time to time, depending on their condition and how we've been repairing them. Let's see. Maintenance, that's the transition is the additional expense, is the new employee or an employee to train for part of the year. See, tab 15 is the archives office. It's manned by a part-time individual, and there's no increase there. Next department under tab 16 is our finance department, and you'll see a decrease in that budget of $33,228. And we have 4 people. They're not new to the office. We have 1 person that's new to the office, but we have 3 people who are new to their positions. And so with the death of 2 employees, and so we promoted up, and Amanda being the finance director, and Dennis being her number 2 person, and then Rachel Callison's now the payroll person, moved from payables. It's now payroll, and Barbara Horton is the new employee. She's payables and doing some grant work now. So shuffling all those folks around with less experience than the ones who were in those positions, the salaries are a little lower than what they were. As well as the medical insurance. So that's where the decrease comes in. And I know I'm a little biased, but I can tell you this finance team is a good team, and they've done a tremendous job under difficult circumstances. And we were just recognized last week with a clean audit for fiscal year 22 and for the 2nd year in a row. Statewide recognition for that.
Mayor, one question I would have on our grants. You said Barbara's working on grants and receivable or payable. is that something we need to look at as far as more of a full-time position for grants, or, I'm just curious. I know there's a lot of money out there, there's a lot of help, and it helps us. The sheriff's department obviously has done a great job in keeping up with theirs. I just know there's a lot of funding out there, and I just want to stay on top of it.
Barbara has worked closely with Michelle at the Sheriff's Department on those 2 big grants that they got. They kind of worked in tandem on that. We're monitoring that to
Okay.
make sure that, we don't miss anything.
Mhm.
We do have a full-time position in the budget. It's not a new position. It's just a position we haven't filled yet.
Mhm.
And Barbara's serving both roles right now. And we gave her the choice, and she said she wanted to do both of them. We said, okay, and to see how things go. So
Okay.
we're monitoring that.
Curious question, how do we monitor not missing grant opportunities? How do we do that?
Well, I get notices from all the state departments, from TDEC and TDOT and Department of Corrections, and we have so many grants right now that we're always notified when there's grant funds available.
All right, thanks, sir.
Questions on the Finance Department? Okay, under the Assessor's Office. See, there's an increase of $10,700, and part of that is the state mandated raise for the elected official. And then part of it is an adjustment that Keith wants to make to his longest-serving employee, who's over 30 years, and make her basically the deputy assessor, so she's second in charge in that office. And then the payroll taxes that go along with that. Then the next tab is 18. This is also under the assessor, or under his supervision. And Mike, this is where this transition, you'll see a transition out, is a couple of years ago we had, Keith asked for someone, a person for part of the year to train, to transition when someone retires, and now that money's going out under the $23,000 less in that personnel line than the previous year. And then, let's see, reduction in other contracted services as well. I just don't remember what that is for, but a total reduction of $26,000. I'm thinking this may be, he has 2 or 3 contracts. One is with a company called TMA, and they come in and do the personal property tax audits. This may be where he contracts with appraisers to come in and help him when a company challenges an appraisal. And so he goes and has an independent appraisal done. And I think that's what this is for. And he's reducing that. Is that right?
I don't have a number.
Okay.
I think based on history and what was
Yeah. Any questions? Okay, the next tab 19, is the trustee's office. We have a $350, $51 increase in that budget. Again, you have the elected officials increase. You have medical insurance increase, change in coverage there. The big decrease in this budget is the $9,500 under premiums on corporate surety bonds, where we purchased a bond for the trustee for his entire term last year, or during the fiscal year 23. So we made one premium payment, and we don't make another payment until this term is over. So for 4 years, we don't make another payment. So $351 is the net increase. County Clerk's Office is next. And so you have the increase for the elected official. And then Peggy, during her process and evaluation of her department, has eliminated 2 positions and that were not filled. And so that's the decrease of the $84,000, and reduced her part-time as well. And the medical insurance, therefore, and all the payroll taxes also were decreased by that decision. And she has an increase in maintenance agreements, which all of our softwares are proprietary softwares, and all their agreements have increased this year. But overall, this office, the budget is down $113,000.
So, how many employees are in that office? 16?
That counts the satellite office too. Okay, next tab 21 is data processing. That's our IT department. And that first line of $2,300 increase is again budgeting a raise that was given in July of last year, an adjustment to Jeff, who does a great job, and so it's budgeted for the full year at the outset, so it shows an increase compared to the year before. You have some small little changes, and then until data processing services, and a reduction of $5,500. He's eliminating one of the contracts he has with some support groups. Then he has increased data processing equipment. Most of the computers that are purchased for the departments flow through this budget and through that line on 709. So he bids those out once a year, and so we buy them throughout the year off that one bid. Okay, so total $2,700 increase for the budget. Next, tab 22. This is the satellite office, the county clerk's satellite office. Deputies are down. You have personnel costs that are down. Medical insurance is up a little. Communication is down. You have your operating lease, with the lease on the office space is up some. And again, that's offset on the revenue side by the lease increase that we get from the state for Judge Boniface's office. A total increase of $1,886.
As a percentage, if the main office does 80%, do they do 20, or how does the bigger amount?
Break that down. How much business they do? 75-25.
I do know that if you don't want to wait in line, that's where you go.
Plus, it has a drive-through limit.
Yes.
There's some back office functions out there too, right? All out there. Okay, tab 23, the circuit court clerk's office. I want to move that. We'll talk about that on June the 6th. Teresa's asked for an additional employee there. So that's tab 23. We'll move that to June the 6th. Next tab is 24. That is General Sessions Court, Division 1. That is Judge Collins. And you have the state increase in his pay, and then a reduction in medical insurance. So he's got a reduction of $4,100, $4,159. The next tab, tab 25, is General Sessions Court Division 2, which is Judge Sinkowski's court. And he took office in September, so that was mid-year. And his pay increase in there from mandated by the state, and then the insurance increase there. He has family coverage. The next tab, tab 26, is recovery court or drug court. We'll talk about that next week on the 6th. Tab 27 is the clerk and master's office or chancery court. You have the elected officials' pay increase. You have a decrease in medical insurance and some longevity pay, some turnover there in that office for a total increase of $7,600, $7,690. You have a $3,700 increase for maintenance agreements. Okay, the next tab is 28, is juvenile court services. You have an adjustment, line 111, for the, just a pay adjustment for the number 2 person in the office to become a deputy director of that office and to create a chain of command. And then you have the $40,000 decrease you have in 130, line 130, is this was a social worker position that the school system funded. And so the revenue is not in the budget on the revenue side, and we're taking those expenses out on the expense side in the 130 line and the 207 line. And then 164 is the attendance for that's the people who man the temporary holding facility, and we've reduced that $15,000 just because of experience. If you look through the history, one thing we need to look at is take a close look at with Cindy is how to help her find staff, or how to staff the temporary holding facility. Years ago, we staffed it around the clock, and it got rather expensive. And now we just do it on an on-call basis, and it's getting hard to find people who want to serve in that capacity. So we need to kind of work with Cindy on that. But for this budget request, it's down $52,000, largely because of that position. Next tab is 29. That's the mental health court. And on the revenue side, we had $150,000 for the mental health court. You have $150,000 on the expense side here. We split the director's salary between the two budgets in half. In this budget, there is half the director's salary, 1 caseworker, and 3 months for a second caseworker. And then you have the next largest, you have the insurance, medical insurance, then you have the drug and mental health treatment. It's the next largest expense. And we can, if you have questions, you can bring those up next week as well, and Penny will be here to talk about it. Okay, the next 4 tabs are Sheriff's Department, and we will, I think they're coming on a date maybe a week from Thursday, I believe. So we'll skip the sheriff's department and go to tab 35. Mr. Chairman, you just cut me off when you've had enough. So, tab 35 is the work release program. That's Don Baird's program that he runs for Judge Collins's court. You have just very minute increases in the personnel lines, and then in the other contracted services in 399, that's where we pay for the jail to work program. And you have the jail to work program, and you have Stepping Out Ministries, which holds classes for domestic violence classes where some folks are sentenced, or that's part of their probation to attend those, and Stepping Out Ministry conducts those domestic violence classes. But the way that jail to work has been funded the last 3 years is the county's put in either $90,000 or $100,000, and then McNabb Center has raised money within the community and it's put in about $100,000. And then McNabb has used other grant money to fund about $100,000. It costs about $300,000 a year to operate the jail to work program. What we're doing here is the county's contribution will be $100,000, and then we have the opioid settlement money, the money that's earmarked for this type of expense of $100,000, and then McNabb will use the grant money they receive to fund $100,000. So, but in this budget, what it reflects is the $200,000 that the county is sending to McNabb for the operation of the program. I would like to sometime for some of the participants in the program to come and talk to you guys about their experiences. I meet every class. We're in class 21 right now, and I meet them at week 3 normally. And so in a week or so, I'll meet all the ladies in the class, and it's interesting to hear their stories. And through the years, the common experiences that all these ladies have had in their drug journey, so to speak, and what caused it, how family members that have been affected by it, how many children, how many generations have been impacted by it, and then you hear a word I hear a lot is hope. This program is teaching them how to deal with their stressors, how to deal with their trauma, and it just teaches them how to function again. And because many of them are in their 30s, 40s, and have been incarcerated on and off and on the streets for 20 years. And it's a great program, and I think we need to continue. Yes. And we're our economic development team, Joint Economic Development Board, and the chamber have applied for a grant through the state it's through TVA, and it's a 3-year grant, and what it's for is to in interviewing some of these ladies and talking to the ladies who run the program, is they're going to intensify their training at TCAT, where they already get certification in how to run a tow motor. They already get that now. And so they're going to get some more training in safety and in computer applications under this grant program at TCAT. And so that's one of the things that some of the graduates have come back and said, what's kept me from advancing at the company where I'm working is the lack of this skill or that skill. And a lot of it's computer skills. And so we're going to address that and help some of the graduates who are on and doing well and back with their families, and some have advanced to supervisory positions, and have help them learn computer skills and other skills. So that's a program that's outside of this budget. It's operated by the chamber. Any questions there? So the increase of $80,413 is, that money's coming from the opioid settlement money. Let's see, tab 36 is the EMA budget. We'll talk about that on the 6th. The next is tab 37. That's the Civil Service Board, and there's no change there. There's 3 members to the Civil Service Board appointed by you, and they get paid, I think it's $150 a month. That's the budget it comes out of. Next tab is 38. This is the County Coroner Medical Examiner. 2022 and 23 was a transition year for the coroner's office. We basically transitioned away from the coroner. Eddie Davis was the last coroner in the state of Tennessee when he retired. And so we are now under a program, the medical death investigators, and it's done very well, and as the transition has been really strong and good, and has become more automated, and so these expenses are offset by about $15,000 that we get from the state for sending our reports to them. But there is an $8,200 increase in this budget. There's the deputy death investigators. I mixed my titles there. The death investigators, the medical death investigators, get paid right now $45 per call and per case. And in this proposal, it would increase to $50 per case. There's also an administrative assistant that helps Dr. Thompson, who is our medical examiner. That's in this budget, and it was in last year's as well. So the increase would be additional cost. I think it's autopsies went up $100. Autopsy, we have 45-ish autopsies a year, and then so that's most of the increase there. And then some software that we're using now, and the hotspots for the technology, so that they can send their reports from the field.
I have a question. You said they charge $45 a call, the deputy, when they have a call that comes in and someone passes. Are they having to go out to the home, or are they charging just for a phone call that they receive?
Most of the time, they go to the call.
If they don't go to the call and they just receive a phone call, because my profession,
Right.
they can just receive a phone call from the nurse, do they still charge the $45?
Yes, and they have the paperwork they have to finish. There may be some follow-up, as far as we've had cases where families won't accept the body, and so they've got to run all that down and try to find a place or some family member, or some place for the body to go to. There are, just like pretty much any job like this, there are cases that are simple, and then there are cases that take days. And so they can be.
On the medical examiner, I heard you say it was Dr. Johnson. I was unaware. I haven't had to do that in a while. Where is his fee in this?
All right, it's Dr. Thompson.
I'm Dr. Thompson, I beg your pardon.
Tom Thompson, and he is in 399 other contracted services. He's paid monthly, and it's $26,500 a year. And he does a tremendous job.
So in the contracted and private agencies, these are his deputies?
No, let's see. Contract, no, 312. If you look down at the notes underneath, 312 are the autopsies, the
Okay,
transports
see,
of the body, and the forensic reports.
Thank you.
Yes, ma'am. Questions? Good questions. Okay, the next tab, 39, is the health department. Now, in this budget, there's $66,267 out of a $885,000 budget that is local money. The rest of it's state health department money. And it's pass-through money. It's what they call DGA. They're employees of the health department. The health department hires them. The state hires them, but they are technically county employees, and the state reimburses us for them, except for the $66,000. And the $66,000 pays for mostly fixed costs associated with the building, like phone system, electricity, internet access, those types of things. So if there's increases in the DGA contract, like for example, right now they're searching for a dentist. So if there's an increase for a dentist, then we sign a new contract with the state. We spend the money, the state reimburses us. Questions? Okay, the next tab is tab 40, that's animal control. We'll talk about that on the 6th. Next tab is 41, and that is sanitation management, or it's contracts with government agencies with keep Morristown, Hamblen County beautiful. We pay them about $14,000 out of this line, and then there's also some money that goes to pay the landfill for the tires that we collect at one of the tire collection events. We have two. We have one in the spring, one in the fall. One's paid from the litter grant, and one's paid from this line. And then the next line, that's $95,000 on that page, is the tire grant. And that's money that's flow through to the landfill to pay for disposal of tires. Okay, tab 42, this is Cherokee Park. The budget is increased to $137. We've had some major staffing reshuffling at Cherokee Park with the retirement of Frank Parker and his assistant and his sister, who was part-time this past year. And what we've done is we've gone to 2 full-time employees and 3 part-time employees, 3 part-time seasonal employees. The full-time work year-round. The 3 part-time work March through October. And so what we've done is paid for the part-time positions primarily by reducing overtime pay, because that was the point of using these part-time positions on weekends and to reduce our overtime. And so we use the overtime pay to pay these part-time folks.
Mr. Mayor,
Yes.
who replaced Mr. Parker?
David King,
Thank you.
he worked under Frank for the last couple of years. Questions? Tab 43 is, this is Ag Extension. And Ag Extension is a different animal from most budgets. This is a part of the UT, University of Tennessee Ag College. And so we pay a percentage of most of the employees compensation there. There's different formulas for different positions based on how long they've been there. We have one position that we pay fully. And so what's in this budget is we've told them to budget a 5% increase on the local portion of their salaries. And then also in that salary supplement line, we also pay a part of their benefits as well. That's in that line. So an increase of $12,860. Tab 44 is soil conservation. This is one position that we fund for the Soil Conservation District. It's Sonia Ricker, a longtime employee, and we pay for her salary and her benefits and her payroll taxes. And that's our contribution to the Soil Conservation District. Questions? See, the next tab is 45. That's the stormwater. And we'll delay that till next week. Next tab 46 is our tourism budget. We have two lines in tourism. Our contribution to the tourism department at the Chamber of Commerce is $22,500. And they do a tremendous amount of work with that. This weekend, if you see our disc golf courses with a bunch of people on them, it's because this is the weekend of the state disc golf championship. We have earned or obtained the trademark of being the disc golf capital of Tennessee. And so we host the state disc golf tournament, which we created. This is probably year 8. I think there's over 500 players that have signed up for this tournament. It's grown from about 100 and some odd players to over 500. And the economic impact of this tournament is over $200,000 in money spent in this community. And so it's an economic driver. And so the tourism department and Ross, who heads up the tourism effort at the chamber, does a tremendous job. Then the second line, 399, we pay, we pay $2,000 for sponsorship of the disc golf tournament. That's in that line. And then we pay, there's $30,000 in here budgeted for the July 4th event. But we offset that $30,000 on the revenue side with sponsorships. The Terry Law Firm pays for the fireworks in full. We also have sponsorships that pay for the other expenses. Food City is a major sponsor for the entertainment. So we break even or do better on that event. And so here's where those expenses are budgeted. Tab 47 is industrial development. Our contribution to the Joint Economic Development Board, which is required by law, is here. It's $91,000, has been for several years. And the success of our economic development program, I think, speaks for itself. And one thing that happened today, what's going on this week, is several years ago we had a mayor's forum. Danny Thomas was mayor of City of Morristown at the time. To talk with, we got elected officials in the room, we got trainers in the room, we got educators in the room, and employers in the room to talk about, okay, what are our workforce development issues? You know, we can't seem to find employees, or there's a skill gap between what skills we need and what's being taught. And so one of the things that came out of that forum was a teacher externship program. And today was day one of the externship program, where right now it's funded by the it's by the state. It's funded by the state. And it's the GIVE grants. That's what it used to be, the LEAP grant. Now it's the GIVE grant. And so we had teachers and counselors from high schools and middle schools from an 8-county area here to hear, and it's a part of a week where they will visit TCAT and Walter State, and employers learn from these employers what skills are needed in today's workforce, and it opens their eyes a lot of times in the educators. What they use is used in the workplace. And one of the things that I've learned from listening to the presentations is Excel, Microsoft Excel is a have-to anymore in the workplace. And today, the manager of McNeil Steel was talking about trigonometry and how it's used in their work, and then coding used at Greenworks as they program the electric lawnmowers, lawn tractors, as they're going down the assembly line. It was amazing to see that one day. So that's what this money pays for. And then on the expense side, here's the TIF money on the expense side. You saw it on the revenue side, and here's the expense side. So it's a wash. Mr. Chairman, I'll go 10 more minutes, and you okay with that?
Let's go 10 more minutes. Are we okay?
I may get to the school budget by the end.
We'll go ahead with it.
Our veteran service is tab 48, and we have a veteran service officer who works 4 days a week, works 30 hours a week. Tim Williams is our veteran service officer, and that budget is up $82. He gets this will be his 4th year, so he'll get his longevity pay, and then there's some training that he has to go to as well. Tab 49, this is employee benefits. There's different items under this section of the budget. Under 210, unemployment compensation, that's where we budget in case we have an unemployment claim, and we have to pay the state for that. So we've had varied amounts paid through the year. So we budgeted 10% to be safe, or $10,000 to be safe. 312 is contracts with private agencies, and that's where we contract $5,000, or we budget $5,000 for work with our consultant for our pay scale. And so we just keep him on, we pay him by the hour, and we budget $5,000 there. Under 506, liability insurance, that's, we budgeted, what was the increase percent? Right. So we budgeted a 10% increase in our liability insurance. And so that we'll also take off that asset list. We'll take off that asset list, the health department building, and add the shopping center building. So that will happen there. Let's see, workman's compensation. We have that insurance we're waiting. We budgeted a 10% increase there. Then liability claims, that's money that we use to pay our deductible for lawsuits for insurance. And we have a $25,000 deductible for property and casualty losses, and a $5,000 deductible for errors and omissions. Any questions on that? Okay, on tab 50, contracts with other public agencies, 310. These are the assessments that we are charged by ETHRA and by the East Tennessee Development District for our membership with those organizations. ETHRA provides several services to citizens in our community, in the Development District. Helps us with, we talked about grants. They keep an eye on grants for us. The Development District does grant administration for us. And some, like the TDEC water infrastructure grants that we're still waiting on our contracts. The development district is handling that for us. So that's what $16,300 is for there. And then under other contracted services, the $10,000 there is lamp tow, which is LAMTPO, which is Lakeway Area Metropolitan Transportation Planning Organization. And that is the organization that it's housed at the city of Morristown, Hamblen County, Jefferson County, city of Morristown, city of Jefferson City are all part of that board and TDOT. And like the corridor study that's happening for State Route 160 is something that is being funneled through lamp tow. And our part of the match comes out of this line. And so we have some other corridor studies that we're going to be doing. So that's what the $10,000 is for those matches. Okay, tab 51, we start entering into our capital expenses in tab 51. And if you look under proposed budget, I'll just go right down that list. Under administrative equipment, that's for some office chairs for planning. That's $1,500 for office chairs for planning. For building improvements, that $80,000, let's see, there's $30,000 of it for the workshop for maintenance at the Hill House. That's $30,000 for the concrete pad, the architectural services that we'll have to have for the building itself. And that, and then $50,000 for engineering and services to evaluate the balconies in the historic courthouse. We've got to get that done this year. So that's in that line. Questions? Okay, on the next line down under 712, that's heat and air systems. Terry budgets about $20,000 to $25,000 every year to replace heat and air systems. He's got on regular schedule, and he's got, I think, one or two in this building. I think one of them has to do with the clerk and master's and the courtroom there office, and so that's where those heat and air systems are replaced if they're needed. The $105,000 under motor vehicles, that's for new vehicles for the assessor's office. That's one of two of his. For community service, which is Don Baird's office, and Don's would be used, the one he has now would be used for recovery court, and then animal control. There's an Explorer that animal control has used since it was formed, and it's having problems and needs to be replaced. So those are the three vehicles in that line. And then on line 799, this is what I mentioned last week, the $200,000. $100,000 of it would be a committed contribution to the animal shelter for an expansion of the animal shelter. And that would match a contribution that the city of Morristown made, 3 years ago, when the animal shelter moved and renovated that building and raised money for that. And the city contributed $100,000, and this matches that. Then I wanted a second $100,000 as a match, kind of like a matching grant program for the Humane Society to encourage them to get into a fundraising mode for an expansion to the animal shelter. We would hold on to all this money until the Humane Society commits itself to making the effort to do the expansion and raise the money that's needed. And then of the second $200,000 is that we would match, like a 50% match for any money they would raise. And so that's, I guess, the intention of this money being included in the budget. Any questions on that? Yes. They've got they've got plans right now. I mean, they've got drawings now for an expansion. The fundraising, a formal board motion, no. But leadership comments, yes. Animal control. I mean, they run their routes and pick up animals and put them in cages. I mean, that's the vehicle they use on calls. No, the one that they drive, they've never had a new vehicle. The two vehicles we bought back when we formed it 3 years ago maybe were 2 used vehicles. And the Explorer is used. I can't tell you how many miles it has on it, but we bought it used because we wanted to see whether that type of vehicle would suit their needs. We bought an SUV and we bought a pickup truck. And the SUV, based on their experiences, serves them better than the pickup truck, although they use both of them. And because of the animals are in a temperature-controlled area, you know, in the inside the vehicle. Does that answer your question? Now, what we can do, and I'm not opposed to this, and I've told our supervisor, is we could go look for used vehicles again. And it served us well. This vehicle served us well. It's just it's causing some problems and we put some money into it, $3,000 or $5,000. I think we paid 10 for it, 10 or 15.
Of those 3 vehicles, you got 105 proposed budget. Are the other 2 going to be brand new vehicles then, you
Well,
think?
I put $35,000 a vehicle
Yeah.
for new
Okay.
vehicles.
It doesn't necessarily mean that the animal control will be a new one or, right, okay.
But it doesn't have to be.
Right.
If we find one that, you know, meets their needs and is in good shape, and I mean, we'll go shopping.
Sure.
Yes, like the sheriff's department does. Yes.
Is that a good thing or not? So the 150,000 drop is that for communication equipment?
Yes, that's the phone system. Yes. And the last thing that we'll do tonight, if you'll turn to continue on tab 51. Go to public safety projects. The $21,000 is for a jail document scanning system to scan all the records that the jail has. And they have decades of records of inmate records, and so that would take care of about half of the cost. The rest of it would come from within their budget. That you'll be looking at next week. Let's see, the motor vehicles. That is for a detective's vehicle. There was a detective in this year's budget, and there's a vehicle for that detective in this coming budget. And then the pickup truck for EMA that is half paid for by a state grant. is in this line as well. And that's the vehicle that Director Bell's driving now. They'll keep. And there's another one that has basically died that will be surplus. And then line 791, the $60,000, that's the impound lot that we would build for the Sheriff's Department behind the shopping center. $20,000 comes from the drug fund that would pay for the concrete pad in the building. And then this will pay for the excavation, the fencing, the rock, and the architectural work that we'll have to pay for. So.
How about getting into that? Are those vehicles that, the tow truck's gonna be able to get in there pretty good?
When we get the drawing done, I mean, yes. And the sheriff he's got some ideas on that.
Quick question, sir. How much would that impound lot save us for what we're paying now?
We're paying the city $5,000 right now.
A month, a year, what?
A year. But we don't have anywhere. What the sheriff needs is a building where he can, for example, they had a Jeep that was a crime scene, and they needed to keep it out of the weather. And they've been holding it underneath the 911 center. And they need a couple of bays to hold, or where they can process a vehicle before the weather damages the evidence that might be in there. So they need some place where they can pull the vehicle undercover out of the weather, process it, or hold it. And so there would be a couple of bays, and I think he's talking 2 or 3 bays, and with electricity, with some heat, and just a water spigot to wash the vehicle.
Quick question. If they've not changed, they confiscate vehicles every once in a while. Why can we not use some of the newer, better confiscated vehicles instead of having to buy vehicles?
The sheriff can answer that better than I can, but from talking to him and Sheriff Jarnigan when he was in office, is the drug dealers that they arrest now don't drive good cars, and they do that on purpose because they've had good cars confiscated before. So usually the vehicles that are confiscated in these types of stops are they're not of good quality. Yes.
With this building, could we not set it up where, and this would be a question for the sheriff, where they could do their own oil changes and that kind of thing? If we had this facility with this kind of stuff? I mean, at least that would help offset the cost of taking these cars, the sheriff's cars, just to any oil change place that has oil change. I mean, could we not offset some costs with different things like that, or?
I think right now, his contract, and I can't remember if it's off a state contract or something he negotiated with a local oil change place, and from my discussions with the sheriff, is he gets them at a pretty reasonable price. So if you pay a person to do it, and for the supplies, and I don't know that you could do any better than what he's doing when you factor all that in. When you have to, who would do it, I guess, is the big question. That's what I thought, but I wasn't sure what it is. Okay.
I mean, not knowing the rate,
He'll be here next week to answer that. Good
One
question.
step further, then, let me elaborate on what he is. As I look over our expenses, there's several times we're paying for car washes and stuff like that. years ago, and again, I'm a little bit older than most of you folks, the trustees washed and cleaned those vehicles. So why can we not make use of folks that are there? If I remember correctly, and what I was told, if they work like the litter crew, they get 2 for 1. Why can we not do this and use other avenues as well?
You can ask the sheriff next week.
Thank you. Certainly will.
Well, I asked the deputy, this travels on our road a lot, and they used to go to the one, it was the Preston Center, but then you have, who knows who is in your front seat with all your, and then being able to roll through, and, but I'm like you, there's, you know, I wash mine 3 times a year whether it needs it or not. And I just am astounded that, how many times they.
There is a stormwater issue with that, that's right.
Sometimes we use those employees, we used to use prisoners at the bus stop, we used to use that.
Plus you have security issues as well because most of these officers carry additional weapons in their vehicles from long guns and such, and most all new vehicles have a button you push to release the trunk and you're giving them access to it. Unless you have somebody stand over top of them and watch them, which is a person that could be monitoring 30 inside the jail, they're having to watch this one and put a lot of risk out there.
Mr. Chairman, that's what I have for tonight.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. If you will, take a minute to look at the upcoming budget meetings, June 1st especially. I know tonight was a couple of hours. I would, just from experience, would prepare for a fairly lengthy meeting on Thursday. So with that said, does anyone have anything?
I'd like to congratulate Ms. Henderson. So far from what I saw, she had the biggest cut, and I am proud to see that as a taxpayer.
We're adjourned.